And then later he says, um, the air raid is over, but another one is in effect, or any number of things. Thank you, Mark Hamill. And it's sad because Mark Hamill's such a nice guy. And being that he's such a nice guy, now there's a whole generation of us that will be triggered that when bad things happen, Mark Hamill is in our ear to be the announcement just before bad news. Well, I have to ask my friends, my Ukrainian friends, do you have yours set to Mark Hamill, or is there someone else that you're set to? We'll see. So, got a new guest tonight, someone that I watched have a conversation with our friend Jared Kessler, and really enjoyed the conversation. And that was really not enough eyes on the discussion. So I do as I sometimes do, reach out and say, "Hey, why don't you come on here and let's have a discussion?" There are communities that I want to hear from, and individuals who speak to issues that are going on that I want to hear from. And as you are quite aware, there are a lot of things happening in America that are evolving quickly. I have a new piece I've been telling you about, but I'm doing the official protocol on Pepsi's massive investments in Russia. They had to spend billions in rubles, or well, billions in US dollars in rubles and taxes in Russia, which means I had to do the interpolation of, well, how much money are you actually making in the terrorist nation of the Russian Federation? And got the numbers together, got the information together. For the most part, there's a few things missing, but enough to really quantify what the situation is and do the article. But you have to do the part, especially with something this serious, of writing to Pepsi and PepsiCo and saying, so, is it true that, and it's 5 questions. And they have a deadline of later tonight, Wednesday night. Again, for me, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, Pepsi, I'm answering the questions. So there are ways in which, journalism is done without that. You could publish it. You would just want to write it appropriately. Uh, when you don't contact a company, you write it differently. You know, is it required? It depends. Mostly, it's a good practice to write to a company or an individual and say, "Hey, by the way, I'm about to accuse you of big things. Do you have any official response?" But there are times where I think that you just have to go with the information that's on the table, what you got. So, reading your comments, and yes, we will talk about those items. When I get back, I also, for those who sent some funds to make sure there is a fan in the studio, besides me, because I'm your biggest fan. That's dad joke number one for the night. Yeah, went and found a few that will work. But because we were leaving so quickly, because we will be gone for 3 weeks often, and that's brought to you by Apple Juice. Then I said, well, I'll just wait until we get back because who knows what the temperatures will be. It won't really do anyone any good when I'm not here. But I like the ones I saw at our local hardware store. For the price is fine and the power is fine. You can, I like when you go to the equivalent of our big store epicenter is like Home Depot, and you walk down the aisle and you can push the big tall fans, ones that will sit like at this eye level and just blow right at me. Because the only thing wrong with this room ultimately is circulation, and maybe I'll kindly ask our studio landlord, like, can we open the main window? Because if I could open this window over to the side, there would be no problems. It's been a weird day with air raids. We had a missile attack last night, in case you weren't watching. Some of you were, where we had 6 Iskanders launched at us fairly immediately, and then that was it. It was over. And they did it again. They saber rattled, I guess you could say, earlier today. And otherwise, it was a get work done day, getting ready for interviews, getting the materials together for the teams. Actually, we're scouting for an assistant, Ukrainian who wants to work on films with us. So have filmmakers circles here that we reached out to and specifically told mutual friends, hey, if you have someone that you know that would like to have a little money in their pocket for pretty much doing anything we ask in the best possible way, like, hey, could you just watch this camera, make sure it doesn't go off? Could you make sure that this sound meter's on? Whatever it is we think we need, just that one extra person instead of the three of us, then I think that that's going to be a good thing. And I have been hearing Angry Birds have been doing good things. I don't know. Angry Birds? What's Angry Birds doing? I don't know. Um, I know that our great forces have actually successfully been taking out Russian ships because Ukrainians have the cards, because Ukrainians have what it takes to be able to do that. I will also say it was really stressful news or difficult news that Ukrainians um, had to arrest a commander today, accused of murdering two people. One of the photos in one of the local, like New Voice Ukraine, I think it was, from my friend Ihor Kuznetsov. Great photo, powerful, not stuff we want to see. My friend Rick, the Ukrainian, live streamed a discussion on it. Like, we look up to these guys to go out and defend the country, and when these things happen, it's quite, uh, it's gut wrenching that someone that you put that much responsibility into fails at that level and betrays at that level. So, I try to stay mostly out of the Ukrainian politic on that aspect, meaning I observe it, I learn it, I understand it, be aware of it, and it's not my job to lecture Ukrainians on those items. But it does pivot me to one thing while we wait for Larry to join us. That last night while we were live, I made some pushback on a Republican strategist that lives here in Ukraine named Stephen Moore. And I said very clearly while we were live, having freshly been hit with missiles, that if your title at any point says strategist, either Republican strategist or Democratic Party strategist, I'm probably not going to like you. There'll probably be some exceptions in those categories, but it's inherently a side of politics I despise the most. At the same time, like we have people who are trying to push back with Trump who have that experience, at least. There are people who try to take that experience and apply it to reverse the cycle of stuff they've done in the past. So at least they speak the language. But no, he tried to pull a fast one about Lindsey Graham, and I corrected him that Lindsey Graham was not why javelins went anywhere or any of that shit. That did not happen. Um, was he an advocate early on? Sure, of course. That's easy. They push for lethal tools for Ukrainians early on. Yes, but what reason why I push back is because, with all due respect to Stephen Moore and others like this, if you're not a journalist and you're not practicing all the good journalistic rules that help make sure that your arguments are 100% sound, and you're winging it, yeah, well, then a person like me who really gets into national security details is probably going to basically run circles around you. And what are the benefits of being an independent? Literally, when I say it, I mean it. Because I don't have to defend a party. I don't do that. That's why I don't do it. I don't have a preferred candidate I have to defend. I just don't operate like that. It's a lot easier. I don't have to bullshit you. So I had picked apart this case many, many times, especially once I got to Ukraine, because one of the first things I said was, wait, you did what in 2019 again? Meaning I knew the case. I was actually in Washington, D.C. in January 2020. I think, yeah, 2020, when I went there to give a PSYOP workshop. And the first night I was arriving, the 17th, they opened up the impeachment hearings. And I have a great photo of standing in front of the Capitol building for the first time in years at that point, no less. And every time I see that photo, I remember Donald Trump is on trial. Why is Donald Trump on trial? Donald Trump's on trial for basically extorting a sovereign nation who was trying to defend itself. And Lindsey Graham essentially invented whole cloth in September 2019 that Trump gave javelins. And then he recycled the McCain attack by saying, and Obama gave blankets. That's where that came up really, really well, because they were trying to fog what Trump had just done. Lindsey Graham was in the middle of fogging exactly what Trump had just done. That's exactly how it laid out. So you can go through and actually look up detailed information about how the FMF sale of sniper, the sniper system, the javelins, all those things operate. You can look this up. You can find congressional arguments about who gets armed. Um, well, in the case of like Ukrainians, you can see the um, not just the bills that were sponsored, like when John McCain sponsors a bill, um, and Lindsey Graham does not co-sponsor the bill, he merely signs it. That pretty much tells you who's driving the case. John McCain was a unique individual for Ukraine. And once John McCain died, the real Lindsey Graham was easy to see. That sneeze probably hurt. Forgive me. But you get denied? I would get denied. I got denied on my sneeze. Regulated it too quick. But I saw that in Lindsey Graham the entire time. I saw that Lindsey Graham repeatedly played convenience, especially when it came to Donald Trump. So he had to become the Donald Trump, soothsayer. And as I had pushed back on Stephen Moore, a Ukrainian basically jumps in and says, "Hey, what's up, man? I'm gonna finish this story. I was telling our viewers about how we had a Republican strategist here in Ukraine kind of bullshitting the Lindsey Graham legacy, and then when I start to correct him, I have a Ukrainian who has a different view of Lindsey Graham as one of our advocates and everything. Um, I don't understand practical language, meaning like, you have to get Donald Trump to do the right thing. And I'm a bit of a philosopher about national security, international security, and I don't cater and waver to dictators to decide what should happen. That's literally the definition of corruption right there. Like, if
Right.
we're trying to run national security based on the impulses and whims of a syphilitic felon, yeah, don't tell me that I don't understand the simplicity issues. Because what I said was like, why Biden didn't do this or something in 2022. To just say Biden weak, didn't want to. These are not true things, and that they're simplistic. Where that Biden wouldn't allow strikes in Russia. I said, but that's simplistic, because when you have a NATO alliance, all those
Right.
countries, you want to guess how many of those countries went, no, no, bro, but you said no, not get into war. You said if I gave some
Right.
of the material, we'd stay the hell out the war, right? Well, Joe, come on, bro. Like, you're putting me in some difficult circumstances, bro. That's what happens in collective security agreements. And so I had a Ukrainian jump into the argument between me and an American, and like suddenly even says I'm probably not even in Ukraine, which is absolutely demonstrably ridiculous. But the point is that we're now, because of Donald Trump, we've got other people reacting towards really bad decisions impulsively, just following whatever they think can make the war stop, the economy not implode, etc. And it's just such a mess. But let's get to welcoming
Freestyle.
someone. I've been so glad that you're here tonight. So much so I never get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to talk about much of anything with anybody. But with you, I really enjoyed the conversation with Jared, and then we both, I wrote a whole thing about Clarence Thomas after he quoted Frederick Douglass and twisted it because I'm a student of these things. And I went, "Oh
Yeah.
no, you didn't." Here you go, Clarence,
Yeah.
Uncle
Yeah.
Ruckus.
And I had a full 1 hour video absolutely shitting on Clarence Thomas. So, I mean, yeah,
Clarence, Clarence is a bitch. It was a great segment. You got my attention,
the worst of the
and
worst kinds, man. But I
and
certainly appreciate you sacrificing a little bit of your sleep to have me on. I certainly
well, it's better
appreciate it.
to do it with you than bombs and missiles, my friend. So,
Very
my
much
viewers
true.
know
Yeah.
I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning all the time and go, "Hey, blood, it's fucking moving across." Hold on, everybody. Well, okay. Anyway, where were we? Yeah, okay. They know I'm
We're
crazy.
right back
So,
at it.
but we have some crazy stuff going on in America. And one of the things that's so difficult about this war as an American is to see what's happening in America. And I'm from Houston. My people
Mhm.
showed up. My people showed
Oh
up pretty
man.
well at City Hall, and they were at City Hall today. And my friend Egberto Willis was live streaming from City Hall, and I'm having chills back. And I'm gonna throw this way to you. I told Frank Figluzzi when he covered it the other night that I am 56 and I have outlived a woman named Idalee Delaney who was shot by Houston police officers on Halloween, 1989.
Mm.
And it was the impetus of us basically doing something that eventually other people would call cop watch. We basically said, no more bullshit. Okay, you gunned down a 50-year-old grandma on a highway. And I'm 56 now, and when I look at these evolutions of, first it was anti-apartheid and then a death penalty case, and like I have this little stages of my progress, and that case with Idalee Delaney is the start of my memories of Houston saying, "You guys are going to sit down and you're going to listen to us, and here's the new rules of the road." And changes did occur in a lot of communities that had a lot of, shall we say, Southern justice and problems that were basically white boys from one neighborhood being in a black community,
Right.
not understanding it. And we said, no, 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 no. We want people who come from within the community. And we did a lot of reform. And then now we have ICE. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's a whole nother
Yeah. And
agency. So
one
that's where we're at.
one step forward, 55 steps back. I mean, that
55
seems to
states
be the
back.
dance. Yeah, that seems to be the
So
dance,
what you see, and
unfortunately.
tell us what you see, because I know you look well.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I think, I'm seeing a lot of the connections, with ICE really impacting the community, really being
Mhm,
able to, like, uh, uh, kinda puncture people that are apathetic. Even people
mhm,
that, have told me in the past they don't believe any of this matters or all of this is fake, it's stupid, I can't do anything anyway. They
mhm.
have now been activated with the deaths of now 11 unarmed civilians
Right.
in these ICE encounters. So community organizations have I'm happy to say I have seen them be more blown up, more exaggerated, more visual. I've seen a lot of city council meetings like the one that you spoke of, a lot the attendance of them raising because people want ICE out of their cities. People want police to stop working with ICE and conducting these
Mhm.
investigations and profiling traffic stops. They want DAs to investigate ICE agents that have murdered people in cold blood and just went back to work. So that it is activating a lot of people. So I if there is anything positive that has come from ICE,
Right.
I think that would be it. That would be otherwise it's
Yeah, and
absolutely
I'm
nonsense.
working on a project here. I'm actually working on a project about Ukrainian defenders and figuring out how I'm going to get Americans to take action. And one of the
Mhm.
methods I use is like what I call the empathy track. How do I go to someone who has no vested interest in the person I'm about to bring up and get them to to wake up and say this is the right thing to do? How do I get especially a disaffected, militia guy in Ohio, in Idaho, like just to, like I just run through all sorts of realms of types of people that I have to reach because it's one thing
Right,
to get
right.
to people I already support, and I'm like, so this empathy track, and as you were saying that, I'm like, how is it that you get, especially kind of a right wing government shouldn't be treading on us? Well, wait a minute, hold on, I think that was too far. What is the line and the thing that happens? Because what bothers me about that for this particular model is I have people who have a contradiction of value systems. First is the one I want to reach, like the one I'm talking about here, but then they're racist as hell. So
Mm,
how do I overcome that wiring that has been so wired in that says my country and my country means my skin color? Or I'll even say,
oh
I know
man.
people who will say, I am okay so long as they're American, meaning white and black, but everyone else has got to go. I've seen some variations of racism. I go, did I just hear that? Yeah, I guess I did
Yeah.
hear that, didn't I? You know? So,
Yeah, that
uh,
unfortunately that xenophobia, the kind of like looking down on the other, that has like that
mm,
unfortunately goes hand in hand with the American exceptionalism. Like that
right,
you can't really divorce those two because if you believe that America is like an exceptionally amazing country, you have to believe that everybody is
pretty
beneath
much.
you. You
Yeah,
like you have to. I mean, that's just it's a one-to-one relationship in the kind of zero-sum capitalistic mentality. But I would say for those people, you could always just start with the thing that you agree on. Start with the thing that you both find common ground on, and then burrow
right,
deeper in that, and then you can branch off into like, hey, maybe people that are brown and from a different country aren't terrorists, or maybe they're not all terrible. You can like slowly integrate more of the what we would call common sense beliefs into
sure,
what common ground you already have.
right. I do this with because of my one of my few areas of real expertise is ISIS radicalization and the propaganda models. Wrote a book on
Oh
it.
wow.
And I wish I could go to every white boy that goes out there and like, it's the Muslims, like, okay, dude, if I could just take a little card, like these little SIM cards I have, or, little smart media cards and just right in the ear, go, hold on, Johnny, yeah. And I take all the knowledge I have, right? And he goes, oh my God, I've been working for ISIS all this time. I didn't realize I was a major recruiter by accident, like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
so,
You're right.
so,
Yeah.
so let me ask you as a black man in America, for instance, if people came to you and said, "Man, white people just don't like you," and you're like, "What are you talking about? Everyone's cool to me." But if you had like nearly every experience was exactly not that.
Right.
And I said, "But I'll tell you what, man, like they don't like you, but we can do some damage to them." That that voice is very important because it's the same thing that radicalizes neo Nazis. It's the
Absolutely.
exact same mathematics. It's taking that person who doesn't feel connected and giving them a reason to take action. So I keep trying to tell these Islamic phobic assholes, like, let me explain the math. So you go out and alienate Muhammad, who's your neighbor, who's been cool every time you've ever passed him, cool every time you've ever interacted with him. But now you're out shit talking him on the curb, yeah. And he sees something online that says they hate you, and he goes, dude, what are you talking about? They hate me. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. He was yelling at me the other day. You know, we can't be giving seeds to that mentality. And yet these people are
Right.
so stupid. They do it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do think there are some people that are stupid. Like there are, unfortunately, like there
Yeah.
are people that will just do that. But there are also
Yeah.
active, like people that are actively working toward an agenda. Like they have an agenda, they have an end goal in
Yeah.
mind, and they're
Absolutely.
actively
Right.
working. Those we have an active opposition along with the people who just kind of
Right.
don't know what the hell's going on. So
Right.
there
The
are two
Project
different types.
2025 and Christian nationalists and the crypto grifter crowd that just can't wait to find some other way to just do the next, basically it's a Coke bump. It's just digital version of a
Certainly.
Coke bump.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're just
Yeah.
they're predators in our society at a level that I don't have a metric for. It's not from what I come from. I'm 56, just for the record. So my matrix
Wow.
of what people do and the types of criminality they do is fixed in those time frames, like,
And you are, I'm sure
yeah.
you have been blown away by the new things that that you have seen. I mean, historical first, all of the worst kind, unfortunately
The one that bothers
with
me most
everything.
is, well, I came out of Black Klansman in Fort Lauderdale. I'm from Houston, but I was in Fort Lauderdale, and I walked
Okay.
out and I teared up. And
Mm.
and the girl that works the concession, she's like, "You okay?" Now she had seen me walk out of movies before for terrorism attacks, being now I gotta go do my job. So I get out and I get very bruised. It's like, okay, so where we got what time? Okay, yeah, let me get a microphone, and I'm very focused, and I go do my thing.
Oh wow.
I told her, I said, "This one got me because we're not supposed to go backwards." And that phrase is exactly what I said. I couldn't calculate how far backwards and how quickly we were going backwards after
Yeah.
Charlottesville. After
Yeah.
everything that I had worked against, everything like people older than me that were like my elders in
Yeah.
my life and my movement, I should say, because I come from basically, not politically active parents, but like thank God my parents' wiring was good, so I was, natural in the civil rights movement of my time with the anti-apartheid and onwards. But it's just like it just seemed like it goes only one way, right? Like we make
Yeah.
improvement, and then all of a sudden I'm standing there and I'm in shock after the way Spike closed the movie with just raw. For those that don't know, I hate to blow the footage for you. Um,
I love that movie.
but he basically right, he goes right back to raw Charlottesville. And I just walked out, and why it got me, because I'm looking at a girl who's like 17, 18 years old running concessions. I'm like, what did we just hand
Mm,
you? That's what
yeah.
got me. When I
Yeah.
looked at her is when I wrenched.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I am optimistic. I am optimistic about our Gen
Yeah,
Z,
yeah,
our millennials. I am optimistic, but I will say, uh, damn, do we have a learning curve? Let me tell you, from our grandparents for sure. I
sure.
had grandparents that were very civically engaged because of the fact that they were Black Panthers in Oakland and a part of the party movement
Amen.
in Southern California, like fighting for liberation. That is not the standard. That is, I just got lucky.
It's amazing if I took this shirt off, I don't have Bobby Seale right here on my body somewhere, because these are the people that inspired me. I know I look like I always tell people I may look like Adam from MythBusters, but don't make mistakes. I know
Hey,
who
Adam
saved
from
me.
MythBusters spoke truth to power as well, so it's
That's
no
right.
problem at
That's
all.
right.
But no,
But these
I do
things that
say,
are changing, the millennials, like they have this on us. No one can virtue explain to me faster than a millennial.
that is very
So
true.
they have got it. They have so got it down. They're like the
That is
36th
a
level Shaolin of virtue explaining. You cannot use that word. Okay, sorry, I did not mean to use the F word.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
exactly. And you know what? And if the if at times it is very obvious when the kind of like virtue signaling and it comes in handy, when it
sure,
goes from online activism into like practical action. That's when it comes in handy. The problem though
right?
is just getting there. We maybe our grandparents were the revolutionaries, but certainly our parents were not. Certainly the people
Nope.
uh privileged to be
My
coming
mom
off
couldn't
of the
wait to sell
wings.
out.
Yeah.
My mom died of cancer at 66. Get this is the funniest thing about my mom. She was a paralegal, right? And I
Okay.
asked her, I said, I my grandmother raised me, but I said to my mom, I said, can I ask you a question? You were like the Farrah Fawcett party girl. I was so proud of my mom. She was pretty. She was like a party girl. She had like this Farrah Fawcett hair and everything. And then you just suddenly cut it off and you're sitting there smoking cigarettes and watching like procedure shows. What the hell happened? She goes, couldn't do it anymore. I said, what? She goes, and then finally at 66, just months before she just died because pancreatic cancer got her quick.
Oh, I'm sorry
She
to hear that.
said, yeah, she says, well, we partied a lot in the 70s as the paralegals. They would go out and just do bumps of cocaine and drink and go back and work on cases, just party, party, party. And she goes, I just couldn't do it anymore. And I'm in the back seat going, did my mom just say she was doing cocaine? Holy shit. This was absolutely hilarious. but it came from a generation of the 70s of that partying, Studio 54 environment, right? And
Yeah.
then in comes Reagan. It's like, get serious, stop doing all your drugs,
Ah,
well, Nancy, and I did this for my friends the other night, the Nancy Does Drugs clip from Clip Roth. Well, Nancy and I, we had to make sure not to be doing cocaine. So when I see them reel that in, that yo-yo effect of like real expansion of our enjoyment and everything, and then reel it back in. We did it during Clinton
yeah,
too. Expansion of like, man, we have been so tight during Reagan and even worse during Bush Jr. I mean
yeah,
Bush
yeah,
Sr. And now we gotta go this way. And what do we do in response? We go back to Cheney and Bush. Then we come back and we go back to have a good time with Obama. And then then what? Oh my God. We wind up with a colonoscopy named Donald Trump.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? I will say though, I will. It can seem like the white nationalists and the white supremacists and the Christian nationalists and all of those people, kind of uh, pushed him to prominence, but they
Mm,
didn't win. If I'm being 100% honest, they did not win. Uh,
right.
Donald Trump had around 77 million votes. Kamala Harris had around 74 million votes. But the number of people who could have voted, voting eligible population, and did not participate was 95 million. The couch
Yeah.
won. Donald Trump, he just got the
Right.
consolation prize. So
Right.
it, there are people that are opposed to it, that were just disillusioned in the last election, and I really feel like that has been the case since 2010. From all of the
Right.
research and from all of the data that I've seen since that Citizens United decision, let me tell you, it has really just been straight downhill from there. It has really, really,
Right.
because corporations can dump money into like attack ads or support ads, and that does not sound like a very it doesn't sound like much. Yeah, I mean, ads is like, oh, you just skip them or don't pay attention. But I don't think we understand how intricate and
That's
how
right.
deeply ingrained advertising. I mean, on social media, on in the movies, billboards, wherever you go, there is constant messaging being put into your head. And that messaging doesn't always have to be Donald Trump is the greatest guy alive. You should vote for him. Sometimes it could be both sides are bad. You can't do anything. Just stay home.
Right. Right. Yeah. One of the behavior, not what I call behavior nudges or modifications of propaganda is to get you to do nothing. I always say it like this: propaganda is less about getting you to do what I want you to do than to control your outcomes if I can't. So if I
Mm,
can't get you to vote for me, can I get you to do something else that's at least beneficial to me?
stay home.
And I studied a lot of the original propagandists, Edward Bernays, Walter Lippmann. I often talk about George Creel selling World War I after Woodrow Wilson literally ran on "Don't get involved in the war." And then in
Right.
1917 hires a PR guy from Chicago to completely reverse that. But Edward Bernays is the king of that. He wrote the book Propaganda, literally, and he killed my mom because
Mm,
he don't pick up a lucky strike. I mean, don't pick up another cookie or a mint or a tart. Pick up a lucky strike. Don't get fat in a fat ass.
of
Smoke a
course.
cigarette, right?
Yeah.
And these types of things worked, and they worked in the same way they work now. They understand
Yeah.
our sensory system, and as you said, even when you think you're not watching the ad, it's affecting you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, socialization is a never ending kind of wheel that we're always on. And
Right,
it's not necessarily a bad thing to be uh influenced or shared information with, but when the source does not have your best interest in mind, as all of these corporations don't, that is when it becomes bad, and that's when we can see the harms and dangers of people just being tuned out. But I will say, as you said, the campaigning against the thing and then getting in office and doing the thing is very similar to what Trump did with no new wars, and then
oh,
bombs
absolutely.
Iran immediately. That
With no plan.
was
With
yeah,
no plan. Didn't even call up
yeah,
the Joint Chiefs of Staff going, could you get me a plan? Like he didn't do
Nah.
any of that, man.
Well, he fired everybody that would have had the plan. So that,
That's correct.
that's the backfire, and oh man, a bunch of yes men around me, but nobody with actual expertise in this field. Nobody with Pete Hegseth, like this is just some guy. He doesn't have
A
any like
complete
inexperience.
degradation from Lloyd Austin III with
Oh,
4 big stars on that black man's shoulder,
yeah.
superior
Yeah.
to that white man in every possible way, and
Replaced by DEI.
replaced by a DEIT. Holy
Yeah.
shit! Oh my
But
God, what do we do with this?
that
Yes,
that is I
but isn't
when
that
you
exactly isn't that the perfect example of what this is all about? You literally lost a Lloyd Austin III, who's a truly, truly amazing man. I learned a lot about Lloyd Austin III because here in Ukraine, the way we essentially got saved was Lloyd Austin and Reznikov, the Minister of Defense at the time, 4 years ago, basically
mm,
created what was called the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. 34, I think is the number, 34 countries to bring whatever material, experience, training, everything together, and basically build an alliance for a country that we have no formal alliance with.
right.
He did this with a type of leadership so calm that only, like, I want that back. I want someone like Lloyd Austin to be in that position. And every time Pete Hegseth draws oxygen, I have a problem. I'm being so
Yeah.
nice. I am so censoring the hell out of myself right now. There's a little sergeant going, "Get it right, Bled. Say it correctly."
Yeah, but you know what? Unfortunately, uh, you know, I've said it 100 times. I'll say it 100 more. This is fascism, and we're operating within it. I mean, you
It is.
cannot have both fascism and competence at the same time. You have to have yes men. Nobody competent would do. Do you remember the tweet? An entire civilization will die, or not the tweet. I don't know what his platform is called. He posted it. He was like, "Oh, an entire civilization will die tonight." Open the street. Uh, the number of people that did not understand the kind of chain of command or executing an order like that, like, hey, drop bombs on these civilians. The number of people that didn't understand that wasn't really possible was
Mhm.
it was pretty astounding because people thought that was a genuine threat. I believe that people have an idea of like a red button that at any moment
Right,
he could
right,
press, and
right,
then
right.
but
It just
in reality, you need those, like, to carry out something like that. You would have to have a team of competent individuals. You do not have that. You do not have
right.
that. Like, nobody, all of the yes men in the world can look great for photos, maybe, can support you in whatever crazy argument that you present. But when it comes to actually carrying out some of the things that he wants to do, that is why he's failed so much in court. That's why he's failed so much with regard to like community dissent and community pushback.
Right.
Got, essentially operations minimized in Minnesota because of the murder of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. I mean, that is why they are losing in such tremendous fashion
Well,
in the
even
ways that
you
they're
saw what
losing.
they just decided in the last few hours, that the traffic stops will be drawn to a pause for
I
right
did see
now.
that. Yeah, I
And
did see that.
although that's not enough, but it's like when they have to have that response, someone got a memo. Someone
Certainly.
says, sir, the polling's already really shit. Yeah. But apparently, if this continues, it's going to be like double shit. So maybe want to go quarter shit today.
Right,
That's
right.
really,
Let's pivot a little
that's
bit.
assuming, there's a strategist. I totally made up there's a strategist at this point because the strategist was actually sent to Gitmo. And there's no strategist left. Even
Yeah.
Ivanka knows to stay the fuck away from this one, right?
Right, right. She said, "Hey, all I wanted was a movie. Let me get up out of here.
Right.
I got my movie. Let me move."
She's like, I'm not saving Daddy from this one. He's crazy at this point. Yeah,
And Laura is correct. She said, "Yes, this is fascism. This was their intent with Project 2025." That is correct. And
that's right.
over half of Project 2025, unfortunately, has already been implemented. And we're working on that other half. another 70 billion
Well,
to
a, a
defense.
term that popped up the other day to bring up real quick is that people don't talk about enough lately is accelerationism. That in 2017, the neo-Nazi groups that were really, really pushing, people did not understand the actual objective. They kind of rationalized it in some normality, which I think is perfectly understandable, a perfectly
Hmm.
normal reaction, if you will. Try to
Right.
rationalize it into something we relate to. And I said, no, no, no. The idea is to Molotov cocktail the thing down and basically until white people run the show again. And
Yeah.
I always told every person who bought into that shit, I was like, let me tell you something, Nick Fuentes. Yeah, you ain't gonna be at the top. Yeah. Because that means you have to work. You have to actually do something once it all
Right.
burns down, and you're not that kind of slug. So acceleration wasn't going to work, but we do see the effect of it. We see the effect of that psyche of acceleration and burn it down, and then I'll get what I want back. Because
Yeah.
that's the type that basically they're all arsonists. They're all, if I can't get what I want, I'm going to burn it down.
I'm gonna burn this whole thing down. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we've seen, unfortunately, time and time again. Now, I will say I'm grateful that um particularly with ICE, there have been local communities that have stepped up. And like you said earlier, of the kind of like police watch that your community did, that is happening all across the country. There are people that
Right.
their communities have rallied around their immigrant neighbors, and they walk with them to the grocery store, and they pick their kids up, and they really just help them so they don't have to have those encounters with ICE. I think that is beautiful, and really community is the only way that we're going to beat fascism, especially when its tentacles are so outstretched and so ingrained in everything that we do. That things like that kind of creativity and that kind of like communal collaboration, really, that's our only path forward. But it's good to see that some places do have that. I mean, in Lorenzo Salgado in Houston, was shot,
Yeah.
I believe, last week, and they are doing the same thing. They have community watches at night. They have alert teams. They have community defense funds for people that are
Yeah.
thrown in jail for recording, or people that are immigrant defense funds for immigration attorneys for, like, hey, this person is here legally. What are you trying to do? And uh, I have not seen them respect due process, but I
Right.
have seen a community intervene, and then the person, that was the ICE investigation subject, was able to get away. So, I mean, it really is just going to take community, because the only reason they're being targeted in the first place is not for criminality. It's because they're brown. Like when you legalize racial profiling,
Right.
as the Supreme Court did, you're saying out loud, this, I don't care if you're a criminal. Like, what are you talking about? If I'm
Right.
brown, or if I have an accent, that I
Well,
get to
one day we're just going to
what?
rename it. It's not going to be the Supreme Court anymore. It'll be the Supremacist Court. But
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah, it got
as
six
long
hoods
as
in there.
as long as Uncle Ruckus is around, still sitting up there, we're safe and trying to call it that now. But
Oh my goodness.
one time Aaron Magruder, speaking of Uncle Ruckus, one time Aaron Magruder wrote, I don't remember what his strip was. I literally wrote to his email and said, "Man, could you get out of my head?" Because he, I forget, he so nailed something. I went, "Man, you channel me, man. I feel like I identify with Huey." Um, but let me bring up and I know we want to talk a little bit about, let's pivot to Iran here in just a second, but there's something that
No
bothers me
problem.
that I've seen for the last few years in living in Ukraine. In 2014, when Yanukovych had cracked down so much, and now he had killed over 100 Ukrainians. And
Mhm.
for the record, for the viewers who don't know, the Revolution of Dignity, what became Euromaidan, started in November 2013. They were out protesting what they wanted for the trade deal. He betrayed that trade deal. They went out to stand firm on that betrayal, against that betrayal. And the more they stood firm in nonviolent resistance, the more violence arrived. It stayed that way until 107 people had been killed, beaten in the street, and basically the tyrant lost because of attacking the people. Now, Yanukovych basically is forced to get on a fucking helicopter and go live with Mama Russia, and the rest becomes Euromaidan history. But a year ago, right about now, when I was in Mykolaiv, Zelensky changed the two anti-corruption agencies born out of 2014, NABU and SAPU.
Okay.
And it pissed off the Ukrainians enough that they hit the intersections and they went to the president's office and for 7 days protested nonstop, and it was reversed. And the night that decision came down, I was sitting with a bunch of journalists in Mykolaiv, and they were all stressed out. How could he do this? And I kind of watched, and I said, I think it's gonna be okay. Oh no, no, you don't understand. It's very impressive. No, 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 it's gonna be okay because I trust you guys. I trust that they're not gonna fuck with you. You know, they learned, and oh no, no, they were still stressed, right? And sure enough, 7 days was all over. I said, "What did I tell you?" Because he's like, "Sorry, man. Sorry, didn't mean to piss you off. It's we're gonna have a meeting tomorrow." And they literally that night. So we're gonna have 5 people. It'll be tomorrow, you know, and everything was because they knew that their fate was tied to the sovereignty of the people. And I just sit there going, what's happening in America needs to be like this. They need to understand where the power comes from, and they don't anymore. So here's my question, based on that premise:
Okay.
Are our people too docile to actually have a revolution?
Hmm.
Or will they basically beg for someone else to do it and hope someone else will cover it and hope someone else will organize it and hope someone else goes out and does something? Because I'm fairly convinced too much of our population is still too comfortable. 107 people died in a country of 40 million, right? So what is the math required in America based on the numbers we started with, the people who've been killed by ICE? What is the magic number, the tipping point? Said that was the last one today. Today everything changes because I don't think we're there yet.
You know what? That I would have to agree with you. Unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure that it would be kind of a singular event or just a breaking point, like it's this 105. Like I don't think it would
Right, right,
be
right, right, right.
that direction. I think
We would like to
maybe
thank
they
Rodney. Rodney, you were the one that saved everyone because you were number 106. And if it hadn't been for you, fascism
that
was
we
going
wouldn't
to
have had a
continue.
revolution. No, I think unfortunately, I think unfortunately is comfortability, and
Mm.
uh, there's just not enough. Like when it's more, when it costs more to be when it costs more to not do anything, that's when people will
Mhm.
act. But as for
Right.
now, I mean, even with all of the people now in the cities that this has happened, I will say it is significantly different in a city where there is not ice, like let's say Montgomery, Alabama, or Atlanta. Well, I don't know if they're in Atlanta, but Montgomery, Alabama doesn't have any ice. So in a
Right,
city
right.
like that, where maybe apathy will be higher. Maybe there will be more people that don't engage civically, more people that don't give a shit. But in cities like Houston or Maine now, or Delaney or New York, New Jersey with Delaney Hall, those cities
Right.
are because the activity is in their city. Those cities are much more engaged, and I'm talking about
Right.
per person, not necessarily like the average politically engaged individual that probably would have been at
Right.
the city council meeting anyway. I mean, people that were just like, what the hell? We got to do something. This is crazy.
Right. Right.
That
Right.
when it comes to your doorstep, I think that is an activator. But other than that, people are just going to have to get uncomfortable to where it's
Mm.
okay, it's costing me more now to like sit and try to be comfortable and pretend that this
Yeah.
isn't happening as opposed to going out and do something about it. And that's why in the cities where ICE has done something terrible, people are like activated. People are, I mean, city councils are full as hell in in Houston and Maine, and there are protests and there are marches and there are grassroots organizations that are getting funding and immigration defense funds, and all of these fantastic things happening. But unfortunately, they're happening after someone dies or after a big tragedy, or that they're not, I wish they would happen preemptively, but I really think it's just going to be whenever that tipping point is for the average or for just most people to
Right. Right.
be
Right.
uncomfortable. That's going to be it. Yeah. And
Well,
I
well,
think
yeah.
unfortunately because the news isn't reporting it, uh unless they have someone in their life talking about it, you know,
Mm,
they when are you going to be uncomfortable? Like if the news just kind of shows nonsense, oh, you know, a cat
mhm.
got taken out of a tree when there's actual fascism going on outside and somebody in
Right,
your
right.
city has been murdered, you know, you will never get to that point to be uncomfortable
The
enough to
Fox
actually
News
take an action.
model, the don't report anything bad because then we would have to stop and talk about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Keep
so
them in
we
that
have
dopamine,
one of
you know.
exactly. One of my great viewers in here, one of my good friends in here, there's a funny confession. I'm gonna say it in front of all of our friends. This is more about my bad behavior. I have a very bad attitude, everyone knows I have a bad attitude. Um, so a friend of mine, I said, "Well, you know, I wanna apologize for calling you zombie food." "What?" You know? Well, um, see, I was really upset, and that day, I was reacting to the way you were responding to the crisis. What I was sort of saying was, if you are too paralyzed when this crisis comes by, we as a pack have to make a decision about you. Are you
Mhm.
a detriment? Are you a bonus? And so it turned into a good conversation because again, this is someone I really respect and is a very good thinker about what's going on. But that sense of overwhelm that's going on in America, how rapidly things are devolving is causing this emotion. And I said, well,
Mhm.
look, and the person said, "Well, you have these particular set of skills. I have a normal life, you know." And I said, "Can you move a box from the right side of the table to the left side of the table?" Yes. Okay. Well, then we have a job for you. Now, why am I saying this? Because in war, I live in Ukraine, where every part of mobilization includes babus who makes Molotov cocktails. They
Mhm.
weave nets and webbing that is used across the front to trap drones. They make ghillie suits. Like, I'm not saying everyone's mobilized here,
Of
but
course, yeah.
mobilization looks like that, right? And so when I listen to people in conversations, I step back here from 5,000 miles away and I say, what am I hearing in my people back in America that is so stunning, you know? And that's what it is.
Mhm.
It's like this pleading of, will someone else please take the reins of this out of control car and make it sane again? I want sane to come back. And I'm living in a country, we have over 1,601 days of full scale war. We don't know what that looks like here. We
Right.
really are a hybrid species now of war,
Mm.
you know, integrated humans, right? And similarly, America has to switch in that. So what I'm putting on the table here for all of us is the difference between action that is coming from your stress and paralysis that comes from your stress that again hopes someone else will do things, which I say if you're paralyzed, well then I had to put you in van one of the buffer bed for the zombies because I gotta save people, bro. I gotta like, you know, take
Yeah.
Terry. Yeah, she didn't do anything last week. Yeah, throw her out there. Just kidding. I
Well,
chose
yeah.
Terry because there isn't a Terry here today. So if there is, I totally apologize.
And you know what? I think that is probably the right idea to have. I mean, right now, I don't I don't know if you have to still be convinced that we have a problem. Yeah, I mean, if you have to
Right.
be, you know, kind of like, oh well, why should I do anything about it? Or you know, if you kind of have that defeated mentality or the paralyzed, as you said, the paralyzed
Mhm.
mentality, I think, yeah, it would probably be best to just like move around those people because there are many more people uh who would just like to be pointed into a direction as opposed to somebody
Right.
now you got to convince when you have to convince people to care you're already in
Right.
a
Right.
bad place. You're already in a place where it's like, oh my goodness, well, first of all, this is bad because these people are human beings, and you know it's like this is redundant at this point, especially now.
Right.
I feel like we should know a little bit about what's going on. I mean, at least a tiny bit. Now there are I don't want to pretend that being overwhelmed is not normal or uh you know that people are weak or you know something if they're overwhelmed, you know, but inside community there are, you know, breaks for that. There in
Right.
community centers there are support groups, there are you know, comrades that you can at actions and after actions hang out with, like get to know the people that you're
Right.
around, you know, understand who your neighbors are and connect with them. Like there are opportunities to relieve that stress and overwhelm, and to be honest, that those have been a part of every program that I've seen, if I'm being honest, because they understand that the flood the zone strategy is the like this is what they're doing on purpose. They want you to be overwhelmed and just give up. So you have to combat that.
Also, I don't know how many of our viewers, pardon me, I don't know how many of our viewers are what I call activist educated. So there's a difference between being like world educated and familiar with a lot of process and how Congress works, and then there's an activist skill set. Like literally, it's
Mm,
you had to kind of come from a certain kind of upbringing, or at least acquire it at some point in your life, to develop a literacy that does not come from the normal world. And here's the example I'm going to use real quick. And I want us to move to Iran. I don't know how many people in their 20s have ever heard of the Willie Lynch letter, as an example.
oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And even in this audience, I will actually venture right now, if I said everyone in this audience, we got 53 people watching right now, raise your hand if one, if you're familiar with it, two, if you can quote it. I don't know. I have been brought here because I hear you have a problem with your slaves, went the line. And actually, it's a manufactured letter. It's not a real historical letter.
Right,
And
right,
this
yeah.
letter, this Willie Lynch letter, I first encountered in my first activism in my teens, is about divide and conquer. Ultimately, the long version of it is it's divide and conquer.
Strategy.
Yeah, older against younger, darker skin against lighter skin, etc. But the primary argument in there was, I see you have this problem, and you are being way too wasteful. Here's the way you actually instill the type of control you really, really want, and it lays it out. And you know what? It's a metaphorical story in a way to tell it, but it's so damn true. It is
Yeah,
so there's some truth in that, and that's what I mean by there's a collective wisdom in the activist community. It only comes if you're around activist people, and that's one of them. And then I brought it up because of the fact that I see ways in which people have inherited a helplessness that they can overcome, but they first have to wake up. They have to see
mm,
that they've adopted this language of defeatism, of like, there's not much we can do. Everyone in Congress is corrupt. There are no good
yeah.
politicians. These are another variations of the exact same debilitating plan. What you think?
I think absolutely. I think you're 100% correct, and that really shows in the actions of
Mm,
just the average person. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't necessarily say it's America is the only developed country that
mhm.
has the voter participation numbers that we do. Like nobody else on planet Earth has
Yeah.
our level of lack of civic engagement. Like nobody, no other country anywhere.
Right. Right.
And there are two primary reasons for that. One is the structural issues. In some states, like you have to like physically mail in the ballot before, like it's ridiculous laws kind of prevent people from getting registered and being civically engaged. That's one. But also, even in states where the laws are very easy, like California, you could
Mhm.
register online. It's and it's, I believe it's automatic when you move. There it's very easy, very simple. Same day registration if you just want to vote that day. It's very simple. The problem for the people in the first group, maybe those people are in Texas or something. But in other
That's
states
where I'm
where
from. Exactly. They robbed my vote twice.
absolutely, but in other states where it's easy, there lies a different problem, and that problem is with caring. I mean, if I'm just gonna be like,
Yeah.
make it as
Yeah.
simple as possible, people just don't care. I mean, unless it impacts their comfortability, and even sometimes when it does impact their comfortability, like, hey, this city council member or this mayor changed something and it now,
Mm.
lessens the quality of my life. M- not most, many would just wait for that person to be out of office. They wouldn't necessarily go to do anything to change it. They would just kind of just,
Right.
oh well, I'm not dying, so like they would just kind of wait to be with it. So I think that breakdown and understanding of like what you can do to take action, like how you can impact your community and society, that
Right.
is that's what I love to share and how I like to break the door open for people that are feeling apathetic. But also, even for the people that aren't feeling apathetic, some people just don't know, and that piece
Right.
of learning is like crucial to taking any action, voting or otherwise.
Yeah, and I think that another thing is that we have people who we're running against. This is the real irony of our times. We have people who are not voting, and we're voting against a party whose members are telling their own wives, "You shouldn't be voting." "Oh yeah, I shouldn't be voting. I don't think you
Yeah.
should be part of this anymore." "Yeah, I don't think I should be part of this anymore. I'll let you make all the decisions."
Yeah.
And yet they went out and voted for the orange guy because we wouldn't have orange guy if not for a whole bunch of white women.
Yeah. Oh,
So
certainly.
so they voted
Certainly.
against their own measures, and when you see these voices literally going up and arguing, and I know like the Jubilee thing's a little bit staged, they pick, a bunch of idiots to sit around a smart person and do that. But but they're genuine. The idiots they get, they genuinely will look right in the camera and go, "Yeah, I don't think I should be voting. I think my husband should make all those decisions."
Yeah.
And we're losing to that. Like that's what I pull out the abacus. I go, okay, so wait, so the women are not even voting in that, and we're still losing to them. Wait a minute, why is that?
Yeah.
Something's wrong with it. And I can't actually, in all honesty, I can't even, as a good American, I can't encourage women who think they shouldn't be allowed to vote. I cannot, in good faith, saying, sure, please don't do that. Now I know some people rhetorically will say such things, but I'm just not
Right,
the
right.
type of person to say that because I believe all people who are allowed to vote legally should be voting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, no question. But you know what? Uh, to be 100% honest, there is maybe a sector of the country that believes these crazy things. Maybe there's
Right.
30%, maybe. But
Right.
most of them, they know that
That
this
is
is
actually the
ridiculous.
percentage. It's 26% never bailed on Cheney, 27 or 8 never bailed on Trump. Like that's the side on both the extreme left and extreme right that just never waver. They're locked on
Right.
stupid, 25% each side. Just
Yeah.
stop
See that.
calculating that 25%.
Yeah, some of those 25 percenters, they are stoking the flames of the fire unintentionally.
Right, right,
You
right.
know what I'm saying? Like, oh well, all this is nonsense anyway. Just kind of don't even worry about it. You know what? Somebody told me. They said I treat politics like I treat gas at the pump when it gets high.
Mm,
I just don't look at it.
mm,
I just put
I
my
see.
gas in and take off because I need it anyway. I said, so does that change the price? Like, what does that do? Not looking at it, you still have to. You just still have to deal with it. I don't understand that, but that is a
I look
pretty
at
common
politics like
sentiment,
a date. I think politics is like a date. And I tell everyone, if you want me to vote for you, yeah, you're gonna have to offer something a little bit nicer than the last date because that offer wasn't so good. More importantly is how do you talk to people? It's like how would you get a date? Would you get a date by saying, "Man, you're so stupid, man, you don't know anything." That's not gonna get anyone to go out with you. Well,
right? Right.
maybe that's it works for some kinky relationships, but I don't relate to it. There's something in the way, like, I read these Donald Trump emails that come out 3 or 4 times a day, no less. They are so cringe, "Why don't you read my mails? I was gonna get on a plane, but I had to come talk to you." And actually, the account I have is under the name Roger. It's a sort of Roger Stone joke, but, "Roger, you're not answering my emails." They're all desperate. They're all pathetic. I've watched a lot of campaigns. I said I'm 56. My first campaigns was my stepmother whipped me for writing Reagan 40 Prez. That's actually all I think I wrote. I just knew we had a new president. I didn't know anything about who Reagan was going to be, but she wasn't so happy. I had an evil stepmother. It's the one thing she got right was going no. Um, but but I didn't understand those things. I understand that we had like the parade of changes. I had a simple view of our
Mm,
politics.
yeah.
And now that I don't have a simple view of our politics, I look at these decisions and I am wondering, like, how many conversations have I just by myself have I had with people who literally do not know their vertical power structure? They don't know their
Yeah.
state reps, their state house, their city council. They don't know anything. They know who the president
Right.
is. And then I'm asking them to go make calculated decisions at the ballot box about our future with no sense of this. But it's something that we're we're stuck with at this point. Where at least that's what we start with. That's the shit
Yeah.
show mud pile we have.
And genuinely, that's where I feel like I
Ugh.
fit in. I fit in, and other creators like
Yeah,
yourself fit in. Like for without people to at least uh put bugs in our ears, and
right.
plant this seed for people. I had never heard of a voter guide before I first
Mm.
voted, but I heard of one because when I was 17 years old, I followed a creator that was talking about them. You know, it,
Nice, good, yeah.
Especially in our age of information, I don't want to pretend that everything that comes out of the phone and social media is gold. But at any moment,
It's
we
not?
could just
I am so
That's what I'm
screwed.
told. That's what I'm told anyway. But at any moment, we could look these things up. Like it is not hard to find out that 80% of
Right,
the people in these ICE concentration camps have no criminal record. It just takes
correct.
2 minutes, and all of us have supercomputers in our pockets for like 6 hours a day. It's just the want to look into that and the want to take an action against that. That is what's missing, not necessarily the action. I mean, Americans are very talented. Americans are very like goal oriented. Like if we wanted
Yeah,
to,
that's
it would
true.
be done already.
Yeah,
It would be
yeah.
done. It would be done already. Like
It is true,
no
yeah.
problem.
When I talk to Ukrainians about Americans, I often am basically stuck going, "We're mostly just like you. We when we have so few resources, we go out and fix our own cars, or we collectively gather around someone else's car, and we collectively fix
Or
their
learn from
cars."
somebody.
Like,
Yeah.
I come from basically poor people on the east side of Houston. I don't come from the wealthy neighborhoods. I come from people who look out for each other. When hurricanes hit, we're all out there making food together. When
Mm.
and I think it's important because this class that we're fighting against right now, um, the and it's not even really meritocracy because they didn't really do anything, but that class that is sort of the get rich quick schemes and God appointed me to be the prosperity, captain on my block, and basically they're trying to rebuild the old plantation model
Mm.
in America, and I see it as something where we have to really wake people up to their own potential in their neighborhoods, show them what they have to lose, and I'll add it like this: in 2018, when we were doing a Get Out the Vote drive,
Mm.
my girlfriend at the time went into a Subway and asked the young man, did you register to vote? And he was busy making sandwiches. He's like, what? You know, did you register to vote? About what? And she starts trying to tell him how by not voting he's losing. He is totally not interested in what she's saying, and she was totally
Mm.
not connecting why he was so disconnected. This is a young man, probably 20, under 20, who is just trying to do what he can to earn enough money to go home. And to try to
Survive.
tell him that someone in politics gives a damn about him, so please go to the ballot box and give a damn about that, was an impossible discussion. And I'll never forget that
Yeah.
moment because I'm like, you're not relating to him. No offense to her. She came from privilege. I do not. So I could have spoken to him differently if the timing had been there. And it's like back to the
Right.
empathy
Right.
track. What does it take to get him to say, "Oh, I didn't know that I could do that," and take action? She couldn't speak his language on that because her language for empowerment was already, I mean, she was too full of what she thought the world should be. She couldn't bridge that gap to him. But
Mm.
we have to go to young people who, especially communities who really have every reason to believe nothing's going to work for them, and say, "Yeah, but you gotta do the following at least, or it's gonna get worse."
Yeah. And that has been my like uh my I don't know, my home base, kind of
Mhm.
connecting everything back to how things impact people individually. And you know what? To be honest, there is a certain segment of people that just they literally cannot. And I know not everybody has to do everything, but almost everybody
Right.
can do something. But
Mhm.
there are people that literally cannot do anything. I know a guy that has 3 jobs, 3 full-time jobs, and then he leaves one, goes to the other, and then the third one is online. So what time he spends he what time he has alone, he splits up between that online job and
Yeah,
sleeping and eating and like recouping. So I'm like, man, uh, somebody with a situation like this, okay, you know what, my good brother, you are good. I will not, I
right.
won't, I know your situation, and he still votes, him of all people,
That's
but
right.
he still, votes and holds that base level of participation. But everybody can't do that, and I try to understand that, and I try to be empathetic to that, but also still give them the knowledge and equip them with the education to if something changed, they could at least
Right.
impact their immediate community. And but it's okay if some people can, because uh as a community, everybody can't be doing the same thing anyway. So you're going to need the people to be supportive. You're going to need people to be, the drivers and the voices and the cooks. And I mean, literally every part of the movement has a need for somebody. But
That's right.
there are some people that just, unfortunately, the way that the cards are dealt, it is a privilege to care about, labor laws and, I don't know, ICE, when that's terrible. I hate the fact that this is happening to these ICE, to the people that ICE is killing. And sure, I'll vote
Yeah.
for the person to get them out, but I can't go to a city council meeting. Like, what? I can't. I don't even have time to
Sure.
eat.
Yeah.
So some some aspects, some sectors of the proletariat do not have to be left out. We don't have to leave them out or discard them or anything. But we just have to understand maybe they can't be as active as as we would like.
Very fair, and I think that's a great sensitivity for people to keep because especially for people who are, very active in politics, or very active in activism, let me use that as a better way of handling, can walk up to unactivated people and make it worse by virtue of
Yeah.
sort of like browbeating them and they might not even see it that way, but browbeating them into a sense of, you're failing and you're not doing enough, or you're supposed to do this. And there's a
Right.
person just overwhelmed, like literally just tasks between tasks every day and no
Yeah.
ability
Yeah.
to breathe in between. I spent my first 10 years of my adult life as a in management. It felt like a curse. I actually, true story, I quit my job as a drugstore clerk and was promoted to district level the next day repeatedly until my last job. I literally at Guitar Center, I quit and they wouldn't take my 2 weeks notice. That's kind of the job I had for 10 years. So
Mm.
totally cursed at that level.
Man.
But just like my dad, I always looked out for people who didn't have power. That was something I inherited very much from my dad. And that meant that there were times where I would be working with employees on impossible situations that no manager normally would step out of their day off and go, "Wait, what happened? Yeah. They docked you like that? Where do we gotta go? The employment office? Yes.
Mm.
Okay, let's go." And we get in the car, and I literally drive my employee down who's disabled to the unemployment office to find out he went over by a half an hour, so they docked him, like, a significant amount of pay. Like, the difference of me not charging him like that. I'm like, "Are you serious?" Yeah. So because I accidentally had him for 30 more minutes, which was a total of $4, you took out 100. I forget what the number was. It was a pretty big chunk of money out of his, disability, and very few people will do those things. Very few people will take themselves out of that power structure of a manager and an employee and literally take the day off and go with someone and do that. I didn't see too
Right.
many other people around me who would ever do that, much less. But I came from that. I came from the type of
Mm.
person that would go with someone else and do that. And I bring that up because when you have employers who will not let employees go do the right thing, when you have companies who are the same way, we have a bigger problem, and they kind of want that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh,
They wanna make
sometimes.
sure you can't go vote.
Yeah. I mean, if you have civically engaged employees, those employees likely are going to like read their contracts and ask questions and push back when things are unfair. You probably, that's not like, you don't, I won't say that, you know, these companies are evil and like specifically
Right.
seek out people like that, but they will applaud it. They will encourage it. Like, oh, you don't have
Right.
to, yeah. Free
It's
candy
okay
at
if you
work
don't go see
today.
your kids. Yeah, you
Yeah,
didn't see your kids all last 3 months while you're basically making money for me. Thank you so much.
no problem. Yeah, yeah. So I don't want to say that the jobs do that, but yeah, I mean, civic engagement is not encouraged at work. I'll tell you that.
No. I want all of our wonderful viewers right now to not only follow and subscribe, but if you consider a paid subscription to Larry's work, please do. I want you to come back often. I think we need a lot of these dialogues where we exchange, like, especially one thing I like about Substack already, and I say this to our viewers, we kind of create our own information environment where we don't have a Scott Jennings
Yeah.
for random purposes to just annoy us. We don't have any of those things. And we don't have an editor that come up and go, no, we can't do that. The legal department said no,
Right,
because
right.
Kash Patel is a terrible FBI director. We don't have the censors who come in and say those things, and we will not have those things. And our viewers are smart people who like to know what's going on in the world.
And I
That's
am
what I like
grateful
about it.
for all of them. Yeah.
So take the final thought. What's what you want to leave for everyone to chomp on for a bit?
Absolutely. The final thought for me was would be just please get involved. And if you are involved, thank you. I appreciate you. Uh, become a poll worker. I mean, if you're
Yeah,
already somebody that's civically engaged and ready to do the work, you can have a tremendous impact by becoming a poll worker, by being involved in local elections, whatever that looks like for you. I know everybody can't do the same thing. Everybody does not have to do everything, but everybody should do something. This is fascism we're facing. But
right.
with community and with collective action, we can give it a kick in the ass.
When choirs all sing the same note, it sounds weird.
Right. Yeah.
That's the way I tell
It
people,
sounds
like,
like it's not. It sounds like it's not supposed to
yeah,
happen.
you need someone that covers the bass, someone's got to do the percussion, someone's got to do the soprano part and the alto parts and
Absolutely.
the counterpoint. And actually, this is something because my strongest background is in music. No music is good without dissonance. No music is good without dissonance. It's really a misunderstood part of harmony. Um, the dissonance and the conflict is actually not bad. I studied formal consensus process years ago accidentally. I was in the media
Accidentally.
center, and so they had agreed to handle things through formal consensus process, and all of a sudden they had to learn what formal consensus process was when we had a left-wing neo-Nazi type of guy. He's not neo-Nazi, but like he really just couldn't stop being an anti-Semite. So
Oh
all of a
yeah.
sudden we're having to really break this thing down that everyone agreed to have consensus model. And I really hadn't thought about consensus, that like,
Mm,
wait, we want everyone to agree? Yeah. So if one person has an objection, okay, so how does that get resolved? Well, they have to actually justify their objection. Oh, they have to justify their objection. And literally these little processes that again in activism circles you start getting a part of it. I learned something in those little models, and one of the ones in that particular model about consensus was that conflict is good. It's actually how you handle it that's the difference. But that inherently organizations come in with so many thoughts, so many histories and perspectives that they're going to clash. And you want that. What you need to avoid is when you hit those conflicts and you have no resolution model. You need resolution
mm,
models to merge these good ideas so that your sax player, your trumpet player, your bass player, and your drummer all make a good ensemble instead of everyone shows up and everyone's the drummer today. Wait a
right,
minute,
right,
because that's not going to work. Unless it's a drum set.
right.
But I mean, like if you have
I like
15
that.
saxophone players showing up, it's like, okay, can someone play bass today? Yeah,
Yeah.
we need a bass player. And it's a way of inviting people to come in and be exactly who they are when they arrive. To
Yeah.
bring in the skill set that they have, and more importantly, is to remember a conflict in perspective is not a deal killer. It can be a chance to learn something, including from our MAGA, and right-wing friends who haven't articulated their politic very well. A lot of times what's wrong with those people is they just have not articulated what's driving them nuts at the root, and so they act out in these other ways. And again, if we say conflict can be good, because we recognize, Johnny, my neighbor, has a different perspective of my front yard than I do. You know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I really want to dispel the idea that there are qualifications. There are no qualifications whatsoever to fighting for your community and to fighting for a better world. You just have to have the motivation to do it. Anybody can cast a bet. Well, maybe if you have a felony in some states, maybe you can't. But anybody can cast a ballot. Anybody can be a voice. Anybody can advocate. Anybody can,
right?
support a local organization. So yeah, I really appreciate that analogy. That was really cool. Yeah, one band, one sound, but not the same sound.
Not
Not
the
the
same
same
sound, right? Nice part. When I play with an ensemble here, they're the top 0.1% musicians, and it's a little intimidating, even though my
oh
skill set
my.
should be normally, but I just know they're that good. And I said, well, what did you remember in college? Play the part that works. Just listen, And I thankfully when I was in college, people say, so you studied terrorism in college? No, I studied Miles Davis. So you studied like national security in college, right? No, I was studying John Coltrane. So so and it's true. The fact that the Miles could walk up to someone, man, bro, too many notes. Um, this is true in how I see the politic as well. I literally can take some of the lessons I learned in that art and say,
Mhm.
but can you jazz it today? Meaning, like, you don't really walk out and play your rudiments. You walk out and you express. So
Yeah.
activism should be like that. You can't walk into activism and take the map in your training and just do that. It's like in kung fu. You do your forms and get your ass kicked. You have to go out and internalize those things and apply them in the real world. And we're going to
Uh,
do that on a regular basis. So I want to thank you again, Larry, for showing up for a great conversation. And please, dear friends, um, build this man's subscriptions up significantly because he's a great mind. I want you to come back often, and we get a lot to do.
oh, absolutely. And I greatly appreciate you for having me. This has been tremendous. I would love to talk to you again and speak to you about not only how terrible things are, but how we can make them better too.
Right. And friends, we had a whole list of things to talk about, but this first part was just there's so much to talk about with what's
Didn't get
going
away
on.
from it.
And these particular viewers are really concerned with this set of topics. I watch their timelines and I watch when they show up in every one of these visual spaces or these live feeds, and they're paying attention to every headline faster than you and I can read them. So
Mm,
subscribe to Larry's post today. Did you have all the paid stuff, the Stripe all wired up
please do.
to take care of you? Please do a paid subscription. Then I don't mind being that guy because I know what happens. And I said this with Frank Figluzzi. Do you remember that restaurant you used to like? Remember that place that you was like, man, they had the best food. Yeah, but why did it close? Yeah, you're right. I stopped going, didn't I? Like, oh, but it's not there anymore.
Mm,
Yeah. So our journalists and experts who are taking the time and who have skill sets, being a sociologist means you understand things about people. And we need these skill
absolutely.
sets available to us. And now we have them without someone in between, like a CNN and MSNBC and New York Times department that says you can't answer questions. And we don't do that around here. So pay for it.
Well, I greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much. And thank you to the chat also sharing thanks with me. You are very much appreciated.
See you soon. Take care, everybody.
See you
Slava
soon.
Ukraini. As we say, here's how we always say. We say Slava Ukraini, Heroim Slava и пиздец Российской Федерации. Basically, that means and fuck the Russian Federation. So everyone knows this
Okay, I
this way of
like that.
doing. Yeah, Slava Ukraini, Heroim Slava и пиздец Российской Федерации.